Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Van Eck, and I'm going to be your host today. I've been a part of a lot of events here at Proven in the last 8 years, and this is a very unique one for us here today, as this is our first fully virtual interactive lunch and learn that we're going to do. If you've ever been a part of one of our events, you know that we love, good food, entertainment, interacting with our wonderful clients, and we really wish that you could be here with us today, as much as we wish we could be there with you. And we look forward to getting back to your organizations and having you come back into our building as soon as possible. So with that being said, we are going to make this interactive today. So you will have the option to be sending questions to our moderators. They will get back to you directly, or we might just incorporate your question right into our presentation. I want to say thank you to everyone for being here. We have a lot of diverse organizations joining us today, including municipalities, public and private schools, and healthcare facilities. We all here at Proven would like to extend our most sincere gratitude to each and every one of you and all essential workers for everything that you've done for us over the last 3 months. We cannot stress this enough, how much we value our clients and our community. So thank you once again to each and every one of you. When you registered today, you've already used Laserfiche. That was a Laserfiche form that you went through. And part of our experience here is that we wanted you to have firsthand experience with the software before seeing our presentation. So that form was actually created in right around under 10 minutes, and you saw the full functionality of it, and you had all the different drop downs, and you can see, when you ordered your lunch, you had the option: do you want a cookie? Do you want chips? Do you want a drink? So those are all fillable fields, and that is something that you're going to see here today when we get to our presenter. So hopefully your sandwich has arrived to you by now. If it hasn't, they're hopefully on the way. We've got some of our Proven employees even delivering some sandwiches today, so you might have somebody from Proven knocking at your door with your sandwich. So I'm going to transition here to Terry McQuaid momentarily. Terry is our Senior Solutions Architect. So if you've ever experienced Laserfiche before, Terry may have come and done a demo for you. He's built a wonderful presentation here today. He's going to be highlighting some of the features, but again, like I said, there is so much more to this software. So, if you see something that you like, please reach out to your sales representative and schedule a one-on-one meeting. Terry will be there. Terry's going to do a great job. As an additional highlight today, after Terry concludes his portion of the presentation, we are going to have a gentleman named Jim Kerr joining us to speak. Jim is a specialist on E-Rate and the CARES program. So we highly encourage all of our guests from the education field today to stick around and listen to Jim's presentation after Terry. So enjoy your lunch. Please feel free to send us as many questions as you want. And Terry's presentation will take somewhere around 30 to 45 minutes. And with that being said, I'm going to throw it over to Terry McQuaid.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning, everybody. I appreciate you taking the time to join us today. As Chris said, my name is Terry McQuaid. I'm a Laserfiche sales engineer, and today I will be talking a little bit about document management and giving you guys an overview on how Laserfiche works, as well as some of the extra capabilities, like Chris had mentioned, including things like the forms that you filled out just to register for this event today. So to get started, I do have a few slides I'm going to go through that just calls out some of the features and capabilities of Laserfiche in different industries that we've worked for. And then after that, I'll go into a live demonstration. What we've got here is really just calling out some of the different things that Laserfiche can do and different organizations or ways that we've worked with government. You can see anything from our public works that we've done for work orders, human resources, your finance and clerk's office, building and planning. I mean, there's several things that Laserfiche can do in different industries. We also have some around education, and I'm not going to go through every single detail on all of these, but in the past we've done anything from your backscanning projects to student registration, being able to submit medical forms and documents, and working with all sorts of clients in really any industry across the board. So Laserfiche has a few key pieces to it. And with those, you have your kind of core of it, which is document management. And really, that's where we're talking about storing the documents, retrieving the data that's important to them, making sure it stays organized, structured, and retained so that it's easy to get to, access, and search for. There's also your process automation piece, which really is when we start to bring everything to life. It's taking that information from a document and knowing what needs to happen to really take away some of the manual processes and tasks that you may have. And to go a little further, and we'll show this as we go through it all, we have our electronic forms processes. Now those, just like the form that you filled out to register for this event, are also going to be forms that we do use to replace a paper document. So somebody could fill this out online, submit a form, whether it be for registering for this type of event, or whether it's for those student registrations or permits in municipalities, or even viewing and approving invoices as we go. So before I jump into the actual demonstration, I just wanted to make sure that everybody keeps in mind that this is a general overview, and we are going to really kind of show you how it works and some of the key features, but it's not going to give you exactly every aspect of how it can work. So take the time to think about in your organization what some of the processes you have are, what you're seeing, and how we can adapt what I show you today to work with everything that you currently do. I wanted just to call out a couple key pieces, and what you're looking at right now is the Laserfiche repository. On the bottom right-hand side, you can see I am logged in as an administrator, and you can see I've got several different folders and files here, whether it be your standard accounts payables, your human resources, and you'll see several others as I go through this. At the top, you'll also see there's some pieces like our scan tool, our capture tool, some other fields that are easy to use and work with. And we'll see some of those as I'm going through the live demonstration and how it changes from one user to another as I'm switching through things. Okay, so as I was saying, this is the Laserfiche repository, and you can see here I do have everything from your accounts payables to your city records and down to our human resources. In my human resources, I can dig in and you can see this is really similar to what you would expect a Windows folder structure to look like. I've got my files and folders that I can go from one to the next. I can dig in and go all the way to an employee's file. I can open up any type of document, view it as either a image, if it's a Word document, Excel, any of that, we can open those directly up for you to be able to use, automatically update and save back in. And you can see there's things here like on this document, I've got a redaction, and these redactions can be automatically applied to things like social security numbers, or they can be done manually to cover a field that we may not want visible. As an administrator, I can see through those pieces, but as a different type of user, and I'll show that in just a minute, you may not be able to see certain things or change certain things. One thing to call out here is our metadata template, and what we're capturing is that important information for the employee that we have up, whether it be their application ID, their first name, their last name, phone number, and we apply these things to several different types of documents. This could be the same for different employee documents, but we could also have templates for your invoices. They could also have them for contracts. And we're collecting the relevant data we need so that we can always go back to these and use our workflow engine to actually help automate the processes as we need to, instead of having things like tracking for, do I have all my documents that an employee needs to be hired? We can audit against these pieces to make sure that I do have all of the information I need and be able to onboard that employee. To give you just another view here, I'm switched over to my Laserfiche repository as a different user in our web client. And from here, I can go to those same files and folders. I can dig right into my employee files and go straight back to the same exact document I was looking at. Now we're opening up just in a different tab on the web browser. You can see though, because my user has a different set of permissions, I cannot see through that redaction. I also cannot change all of the different metadata fields, only some of them can be modified. And I still have certain abilities like being able to open up sticky notes and view those things and be able to start processes on these documents. So as a quick overview of the Laserfiche repository, that is showing you just a couple different ways that you can actually access your files. There is also a mobile app that can be downloaded for iOS, Windows, or Android, Android devices. And we'll kind of transition from there into the next piece, which goes from just the files themselves in the repository to how we use those to then build on processes and create the forms like the one that you guys use to register for the event. So the first thing that you can see up here is as I'm logged into Forms, I can see I have a few different tasks that are waiting for me to complete. This is my inbox. This is typically the same way if you signed up for an event for like today, we would have a task assigned to either a team of users or a specific user who needs to review the document and make a decision on what to do. In this case, I've got one that is a public records request, and I'll show you a little bit on how we can combine these and add them to your website as well. But as we go, and this will take just a second to load, so you can see I have the form that was actually filled out and submitted. I can see who it was who had submitted the form. I can see what they were requesting. I can even attach documents. So now that I know if I'm looking for something like the 2006 budget, I can attach it directly from Laserfiche, or if I have a document that's stored or I need something scanned, I can scan it right in, attach it to the request itself, or I can key a record ID and have it actually pulled directly from the Laserfiche repository. Once I've found that, I can make any additional notes that I may need to and respond and complete the process. Once these processes are completed, I'll just go back here. You'll see I can clear out those tasks and be able to actually proceed on to the next task that's waiting for my decision. This one here that I just pulled up is an expense reimbursement. At the same time, I can go through, I can review all the details, and then I can make a decision if I want to complete this task and remove it from my inbox, if I want to save it like I did for the records request, or if it needs to go on to a further step, we can easily do that. So that's a little bit on the inbox and how we interact with tasks that are related to us. But then there's really the key piece to this is, how else we can utilize these forms. So what I've just pulled up is called our business process library. And you can see from here that I have anything from pre-built forms and processes in different segments, verticals, industries that you can review, and we can go in and just look at some here. Like I've got one that's for construction. I can go into our government, our K through 12, manufacturing, and see all the different types of forms available. Now, if I said that there's one specifically that I like or I may be interested in using, I can select that process, and we're just going to go for the workers' compensation claim. And you can see here, it actually shows me a sample of what the workflow running in the background is, any approvals that need to happen, what the decision trees would look like, who these documents and files route to once the file and form has been submitted. So this is very similar to, as you guys were filling out your registration, how it was routed to our team members and our managers to review and know what team this is for, what your sales rep was viewing or who they had spoken to, and gives you samples as well of the form that you would be filling out and how it could be used. Now, if this is something I decided is a document or a file that I think I could really utilize, I can actually go from here and tell it directly to just import this claims process. And we're just going to name this with a 1 at the end. And it's actually going to download that process for me to use and give me the ability to edit it, customize the workflow behind it, as well as show the forms themselves. So now you see here that it actually has downloaded, and I can go into the specific process part. So this is actually basically our starting point on the form where it's going to go and say this form was submitted. Here's the different directions it can go based on the type of form, what information was collected, and what they've passed along. And from here, if I said everything's good, I'm just going to use it this way, you can actually go into the forms themselves and see the form and the actual fields that you can collect. as well as a sample view of what the form looks like. So now that I've seen it, I can even see there's certain fields like one of the users that's logged in is automatically being collected, their email's collected. Those are things that we do as lookups as soon as we have that user information when they are signed in. Now, if I decided I needed to add specific fields or remove fields, it's as simple as being able to select that field and say, I don't need this one. If I said I did want one here, and we need to say what we're doing and decide what we wanted on this, we could edit all of it, complete the actual document. If I go and check this again, there we go. Now you can see I've added those checkboxes directly onto this form. So it's very simple to build these forms. It's really easy to use them, as well as the fact that it has that process designer that already has so many processes in the business process library here. Makes it very easy to find forms similar to what you may want to use, how you may want to use them, be able to import those documents in those forms, and then just modify the process to match what you would like to do. Show just a few more examples here. Again, it has the process. You still see the sample of the actual form itself and what you can do with it, and being able to then run these in your own environment and customize them to really fit your needs. Now, one thing to mention with all of this that I'm displaying here is that every one of these fields can be collected as variable data. So we can take everything that gets filled out. Not only can we store that data and use it for information to collect documents and files, the same way if a student was filling out, or your parent was filling out student registration, they can attach their proof of residency, they can attach medical documents, and by having all this data we're collecting on the form, instead of it being similar to your typical PDF that somebody would fill out or write in, we save all this data and then we can associate it to the files and build reporting on it later so that we can go back and review the information and be able to use that to build the customized report. So how many people have registered, how many have documents that were attached, or how many were approved, and we're pulling that data back from the reporting in the form that people are filling out to help give you the information you need in a structured way you need it, versus having to go back and look these up one by one or try to determine how many people have registered. We can build all of that as a report. You can see all the fields enlisted and your first name, last name, date of birth, or in the case of this event, what organization you were from, and generate those reports automatically for you. So going back into these forms processes, you can see here we've built several forms for different demonstrations and organizations, and I'm sure there's probably hundreds of cases and uses that we can show you that we've done. I quickly want to just go ahead and pull up a couple samples for you to see. So we have things like I was saying, our student registration, where I can have everything from your required items for registration to be completed, to all the actual enrollment forms, and all of this gets built directly into this process. So the same way that you would want to collect this information on paper, we can remove the need of actually having to require all those paper documents and allow parents to fill basically everything out online that you would be able to receive, review, and then make a decision on if you need to approve or deny it based on each one of those sections. So even though it's one form, you may be able to approve half of the information and then could look at, possibly having to reject part of it where they're going to have to resubmit certain things. Another one of these would be around our permit applications. Pull this up here. So you can see here we've got a permit application up where we're actually able to collect all the data that somebody would be looking for in terms of who the person is, primary contact, collecting signatures. Now, because I'm on a computer, I can type in and sign by typing. The other thing that can be done is we have the ability to do draw. And if you're on a touchscreen, you can draw your signature directly on that screen. While we're collecting all of this information, and I won't fill everything out here, you'd be able to see everything that you would require to complete the full permit request. and submit for that permit to be approved. Now, let me fill in these couple fields here. And what you saw there was I do have certain fields set as required, so it is not going to let us complete the form, and we can have those as, you know, fields that are required or optional based on your decision and what people want. Further, make my selections, and let's see if that was all. So now this form is submitted. I can see a copy of the actual submission itself and save that. I can download it, I can print it, or I can have it emailed to me. At the same time, now that that has been submitted, a task will get emailed internally telling us that we have a new submission. And I can go back to my inbox as well and be able to see that there's a new form or task waiting for me. I can key in as a user any of the project information that may be required or anything that internally the building department may need to have. Once they've reviewed everything and verified all the documents are there, it's as simple as approving the actual permit, and it will generate the permit for you, storing this all in the Laserfiche repository under, you know, that parcel number, address, whichever way we want to organize these, and be able to collect that with the permit. And we could go further even into payment processing. So that gives you kind of that quick overview of the Laserfiche forms. With that, I do want to show real quickly a couple kind of sample websites of how we can include these and implement them as well into your own websites as you go. And we can show you a few different samples here, like our city website. So from our city website, you can see I have just kind of a basic, you know, layout, but we have the ability to say, I want to create a records request. Now, this is kind of similar to the one I showed at the beginning, where we can actually generate the, you know, freedom of information requests. We can use these things for job applications. We can also do it for internal forms that may be your time off requests and that you can utilize, you know, for, you know, even doing timesheets. So, you know, talking about what Laserfiche does and how it works, you know, I try to really grasp several different areas to show everybody. But at the end of the day, it's more of talking about what are the important things that you're looking for. And if you have a paper process that maybe you currently would take and fill a document out, bring it to another department or a manager or supervisor, have somebody sign off, we can now take those things and be able to, you know, take the electronic document, create the form out of it, pass those along to the appropriate people, and get the approvals we need. All the reminders are included, being able to track those and audit against who the approvers were, and really being able to simplify those processes that you would normally have to track down and try to maintain manually. I think that really covers the core of what Laserfiche is and what I wanted to be able to take the time and show everybody today. Were there any questions that I needed to cover that have came up or anything before I hand this back to Chris? So does the system allow bulk emails, for example, there are multiple AP invoices entered for approval? Can they just get one email instead of multiple during the day? So yes, in cases like that, as we have invoices coming in, you have the option of working those internally in a queue to where each day you're building these, you know, awaiting approval invoices. And then whether you want it to be once a day, or even if you said it's going to be every other day or every 6 hours, it'll build that entire list and send it as a single queue to where a user can then go in, see each and every one of them and in their own list, and then make a decision on approving or denying those. So I kind of showed a little bit about the approval processes in forms. Let me just switch actually back here real quick to my forms processes. And that is where we go back into our designer here. Let me just go into a simple one. So what you're seeing on the screen is really going to be the process designer right here. So think of this green button as this is your starting point. So once a document is submitted, what needs to happen? The first piece to it is going to be, routing and who it routes to or what messages need to be sent. We do have things that allow us to make decisions to route to, dynamically based on the department or the user who was signed in, or to be able to pass these along based on cost and values. So if we said that I've got a invoice in here and maybe it's a $5,000 invoice. So normally I might only need one department or one person's approval, but because that cost is so much higher, you have to have a VP approval. So that's where this comes into play, and we say, okay, we need to assign a user task, and that task can go to either a specific person, can go to a team, or can be dynamic based on who you are, looking at who your supervisor is, passing those pieces along, and they'll get the decision to then either approve or deny those tasks. It doesn't matter how many people this goes to. You can have 15 approvers that are all simultaneously being sent to approve, or it could be in this single line, kind of like what you were just seeing there, where there's one approver after another. So one of the other questions that came up was around if the forms can be a Excel spreadsheet. We use forms to replace those things, and we can even put tables into those forms. But any of the data we're collecting, we can write to a database, which at that point, if you were looking at exporting that and being able to either reuse that data or restructure it, you can take that data and really put it into a spreadsheet or anything else you would want to. So if there's no other questions, then I will end my portion of the demonstration and hand things back to Chris. I do just want to let everybody know that once this is done, we will be making it available for everybody so you can see the video, replay it. Any material that you have seen today, we can make sure we get out to you as well. I appreciate all of your time today, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you to Terry for the demonstration. Like Terry said, we are going to give we make this available by video, so you'll be able to rewatch it. But again, like I said at the beginning, please reach out to us and schedule your own time one-on-one. Terry can make these demonstrations customized to your organization. We'll use your actual documents. We'll put your logo on it. We'll use your people's names so you can really see the process of all of this. One other thing I want to add about Laserfiche as well is that what we now do is we offer something that we call scanning as a service. And what scanning as a service is we will actually come out and do an assessment at your organization, and we will a lot of places have many bankers boxes filled with old documents. So in education, you've got your student records. Government, you have many files that you have to keep for 75, 80 years. And, healthcare, whatever it is, all organizations for the most part have file cabinets or rooms filled with old documents. Proven will come out. We will pick those up for you. We will bring them back to our secure facility, and we will scan those in for you into Laserfiche. So then you will have the ability to have access digitally to all your documents. And at a time where in the last 90 days, we've seen most organizations be forced on the fly a lot of times into a work from home situation, to be able to access all of your documents at any time is as important now as ever. So that's something that Proven started doing a couple years ago. We've had tremendous success picking up hundreds of boxes from many different organizations. So that is, again, something that we offer and we can absolutely incorporate to you for Laserfiche. So at this time, I'm going to wrap up the portion of our event for, our main users here. We are going to have Jim Kerr join us for a talk here momentarily about E-rate and the CARES program, which again is highly valuable to our education guests joining us today. But for most of our general audience here at this time, I want to say thank you again for joining us, and we look forward to future digital events with you in the future, but we absolutely cannot wait to see you in person back at your office. So thank you, everyone. and enjoy your lunch and have a great day.
All right, thanks much. Confirmation that you all can see my screen. So from there, I am going to talk to you a little bit about E-rate, the upcoming funding year 2021, CARES Act, Potential Heroes Act, and some E-rate activism that you all can do now that will significantly support the E-rate program and funding, expansion of funding going forward. So by way of introduction, my name is Jim Kerr. I run a corporation called KB and Associates. We are a service provider consultant. We work with manufacturers and service providers in helping them to be successful in the E-rate program, training, how to keep them out of trouble, all those good things about E-rate that you know and love. So with that being said, I know my role and I cannot act as your E-rate consultant, so this is informational only. I'm not advising you on how to complete a bid process or a Form 470. With that caveat, there's a lot of things that are happening in the E-rate program, and so I want to kind of highlight those and then talk about maybe a little bit of planning for the upcoming 2021 funding year. So as it stands right now, one of the waivers that has occurred by the FCC is what's called the gift rule. And prior to this rule being waived, the maximum that a service provider like Proven could give to an individual in an organization involved in E-rate was $20 in any single transaction. That has changed as it regards stuff to expand telecommunications and things to expand distance learning applications, etc. So that being said, you can, through September 30th, engage in, you as an applicant can solicit a service provider and they can provide you equipment to enhance your telecommunications and distance learning applications. Again, improve broadband connections or equipment for telehealth or remote learning. Another thing that's occurred is they've extended program deadlines. They extended the deadline for applications for 2020. They're also allowing things like Form 500 requests, audits, appeals, invoices. All those can be extended, and the new dates are published. And one of the in particular things is if you receive a 15-day letter for your previous applications, you can automatically get that extended, and they're pretty lenient about the extensions on those 15-day letters, which is unusual. Also, the relaxation on what's called community use. Prior to this, if you were to utilize portions of your E-rate funded internal connections or bandwidth or whatever for other applications outside of educational applications, you were required to cost allocate those out. And now they are permitted to provide those services without any kind of cost allocation. So the general public is allowed to use E-rate supported Wi-Fi networks while on a school's campuses or libraries. So that's good news as well. So what did the CARES Act do? Hopefully you are seeing that money flow to you as we speak. And purchasing one-to-one devices and internet service for students without laptops and Wi-Fi access, a bunch of other things, but a lot of schools are actually using it for what is really the most important and pressing needs, which is one-to-one device or bring your own device type stuff and internet service for students without laptops and Wi-Fi access, particularly distance learning applications. One of the things you should note is the bullet point at the very bottom of the page. You're allowed to take those funds and kind of hold them a little bit and leverage them against E-rate funding. So let's say that you are a 60% school district or applicant, and you have, so you would have to pay 40 cents on the dollar. And let's say that you have a $100,000 E-rate Category 2 internal connections budget. You are allowed to utilize these funds to offset your 40 cents on the dollar. The funds have to come from somewhere. They're not picky about where it comes from, and if you're kind of leveraging that money against your existing budgets for Category 2 internal connections, that's perfectly acceptable. So there is the lower house of Congress, the House of Representatives, has passed what's called the HEROES Act. And it has $90 billion for education, which 65% of it, which was for K-12. And specifically 65% of $90 billion to support online learning, pure and simple. They go into extensive definition of distance learning. You can look it up. The CARES Act is 1,800 pages long, or the HEROES Act, excuse me, is about 1,800 pages long. But in there, it's got a lot of money assigned for technology infrastructure and for distance learning applications, a lot of security. They talk about all of that in there, but it's a lot of money. And we're going to talk a little bit about what you can do to help get that money and leverage it. Hopefully it'll pass. The Senate's talking about some sort of relief act in July. We're suggesting that you start to contact your senators as early as possible and push for this. So that activism, let's talk a little bit about that. There has been some discussion. There was a letter that was passed around by a number of Democratic senators to expand the E-rate program by as much as $4 billion. And so they're trying to expand the E-rate program within the funding to support the National Broadband Plan and an expansion of E-rate Category 2 internal connections. We know that they're interested in doing that. Senator Markey has been a lead. He was actually part of the actual Telecommunications Act and E-rate program's inception back in 1996. And he has been kind of a grandfather to this whole process, if you will. So he's certainly taken a lead, and he was a lead signer of that letter. So we're really recommending at this point, if you have any connections, or even if you don't, call your local senator's office and ask him to help pass the HEROES Act with a lot of money for education. We all know that budgets are getting nailed left and right. You're probably already starting to hear it from your management. We know that the income stream has been cut off to states and localities, and therefore that's got to flow down. And unfortunately, oftentimes short-sighted politicians tend to look to education as an easy cut. And we all know how painful that is. We've been through it before back in the recession in 2008, 2009. Hopefully we don't see that again, and we can make sure that it doesn't happen as drastically as it did back then. We're still paying for it in some schools. So again, petition your local senator regarding the HEROES Act and funding for K-12 education. And then also we recommend that you petition the FCC, and there's a specific way to do that, and we're showing you here on the screen. But there are several things or movements afoot, particularly with distance learning and the requirements that this has all come to fruition. So we would recommend that school buses be allowed to be designated as mobile classrooms and to be able to establish distance learning sites within them. Bookmobiles are currently eligible, but school buses are not. So there, you can also go online and look up the Coachella model. They showed a dramatic reduction in dropout rates due to being able to place buses at migrant worker camps, as an example, overnight, and allowing them to be used as mobile hotspots. Again, allow MiFi devices, take-home hockey pucks for internet access at home to be eligible. We all know that there's a lot of security that's associated with those, VPNs, etc., to tunneling through them to get to access for district network where you have to be SIPA compliant and other things. So again, if you go to that link, you can go to that, and there's an interesting filing that you can ask to support and incorporate those 3 bullet points and just say, hey, we support the Funds for Learning application that just happened. You can click on that, you can read that filing, and so we support the Funds for Learning white paper suggesting that the following 3 things be eligible. It literally takes about 2 or 3 minutes to do that. All you have to provide is your email address and your phone number and your name, and you become part of that process. If we can get enough constituents, i.e. the E-rate applicant community, to do that, the FCC pays attention to that. And so we highly encourage you to do it. Here's that the link that I alluded to regarding this filing. You can do something as simple as this. This is all you have to fill in, and just that brief comment or an additional comment for mobility and distance learning types of applications. Copy and paste those bullet points if you want, and just put them right in here into that brief comment, and that's your vote. Another thing that's changed recently, and we want to make sure you're aware of, is proof of concepts, demos, and evaluations. Prior to this, there has been some flexibility in that process. They've come down and said during the Form 470 filing window, when you file your Form 470 and during that period, the maximum number of days that you can have a demonstration going is 15 days. So within that 28-day window, you're only allowed to have demos for 15 days. Outside of that window, there's a lot more flexibility. Make sure that you and the partner that's providing it, that proven or is providing that to you, make sure that you document the receipt of it and the return of it, and make it, the time frame shouldn't be all that long. 60 to 90 days as an outside is recommended. 6 months, you start to look at what's a violation of the gift rules. Now, sure, those have been relaxed, but they're not allowed to give you this stuff without documenting as a gift versus a demonstration or evaluation. So COVID-19 has had a significant impact on a variety of areas within education. I'm not going to take too deep a dive into each one of these, but certainly it's encouraged distance learning, and we're still trying to get our feet underneath of us as far as that goes in some respects. Some school districts are doing it better than others. There's a lot of examples out there. We know that distance learning is here to stay. And the reason for that is as schools open up, the requirements for schools is to have only about 50% capacity. So that's going to drive a significant number of students off campus during regular school hours. You're not going to be able to have enough students in a classroom to fully occupy a classroom. So if you've got a class size of 25 to 30 kids, that classroom, standard classroom size, will only accommodate 12 to 15 kids. So half of your kids are going to be off campus or in some other learning environment while you have a learning and actual face-to-face learning environment on campus. So staggered classes, half days kind of thing, or I think a more likely scenario is to be alternate days where half the class is on campus, half the class is off campus, but then you're driving a tremendous network requirement for having per classroom 15 off-campus students networked into that classroom via distance learning mode in real time. And so that's going to be challenging as far as your networks are concerned. It's also going to have a significant challenge on your security capabilities. A lot of flipped classrooms, and then making sure that there is digital equity for those students that are underserved today or underprivileged, that they are and do have full access to the digital content that's being provided. So again, those are all key drivers. That all costs money, and figuring out how to utilize that money and where the money comes from is the key. So we know that it's really going to have an impact. The COVID-19 and the significant impacts on our economy have going to have significant impacts on school budgets. We know it's coming. So you're being driven to utilize every funding resource you can get your hands on. I know that where there's 50% discount or 40% discount on E-rate, it's difficult sometimes to justify going through all the motions just to get that discount. It's going to become imperative to do so. I think that the business management and senior management at the local educational agency level are going to realize that if you're not utilizing every dollar and every funding source available to you, you're not doing your job correctly. So work with your partners to do things like have leasing options. You can amortize let's say you utilize your CARES money for something else and you don't have enough money to do what you need to do in the coming year, you can amortize your match. So let's say you are that 60% discount, you owe 40 cents on the dollar applicant agency. At that point in time, you can fund over a 5-year period on a lease that 40% match. So that makes it a lot more, or makes it painless, hopefully, or less painful, if you will, in the process. And then I would also look at managed internal broadband services as an E-rate application. This is a support mechanism where your IT partner can help you support these networks and do more with less at what I would consider to be reasonable rates. And so I would kind of look at managed internal broadband services when you go to do your 2021 application as a potential way to help reduce staffing costs, et cetera.
So, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to conclude all of our presenters today. Just one final thank you to all of our guests who remained with us there for Jim's presentation. If you want to have additional conversations with Jim, again, please reach out to one of our reps. You obviously know your person, so they can get you in touch with Jim, get you more information, ask specific questions. There's a lot of value that Jim can bring to the education field. So thank you again, and we're going to conclude with that.